Hi folks, happy Friday to you and yours. I hope you've had a great week and have exciting plans for the weekend. I have a long run tomorrow, which means I get 4 or 5 hours of audiobook reading in, and on Sunday I'm off to the cinema to see the 25th anniversary showing of The Phantom Menace. The fact that it's 25 years old is a trifle terrifying, to be honest. It's far from being my favourite Star Wars movie. Nowhere near, in fact, but it's not the worst either, and I've never seen it on the big screen, so I'm looking forward to it. It's funny, my kids grew up with that prequel trilogy, and to them it's the absolute bee's knees, much better than the original three. As the saying goes, there is no accounting for taste. Okay, where are we? What have I read this week? I finished Early Riser by Jasper Fforde. I wasn't sure how I was going to get on with this book. It took me a while to settle into his style, but settle I did, and I was ultimately very happy to go along for the ride. Early Riser tells the tale of Charlie Worthing, who lives in Wales, in a very different world to ours. For hundreds of years, thousands even, we have been living through an ice age, and the winters are brutal, positively Antarctic in their severity, not what we're used to in this country in our temperate climate. Humans have dealt with this harsh environment by hibernating for the winter months, just like bears, but someone has to make sure that everything runs smoothly, keeping the slumbering masses warm. And this is where the winter consuls come in, and Charlie has been newly inducted into their ranks. Their word is law during the winter. Charlie gets trapped in District 12 and gets into many scrapes while he's there. I really enjoyed the world building in Early Riser. Every page is peppered with little asides, tongue-in-cheek remarks, references, which gradually help to build a rich picture of how this strange world works and of the strange inhabitants of this wintry version of Wales. There is a conspiracy, sinister goings-on at Hybertech, Walking Dead, the campaign for real sleep, winter consul law, and just a lot of interesting bits and pieces of detail. You do have to get past the, what you might call, slightly clever prose, the witty remarks, but like I say, it rewards a patient reader. I liked it. Next, I read Rhapsody in Black, which is the second book in Brian Stableford's Star Pilot Granger series. And for a book about a star pilot with a dirty great big spaceship on the front cover, there is not a lot of spaceshipping involved. Granger spends the vast majority of this book underground. The surface of Rhapsody is not habitable. The population of religious fanatics lives in extremely dimly lit caves and passages below the surface. Granger and his crew are there to secure something, we don't know what, and neither does Granger, but it's valuable and it's deep underground. Much of the book is spent with Granger on the run in the dark, having escaped captivity. There's a lot of internal dialogue with his symbiote, the Wind, which is mostly interesting, with the symbiote trying to persuade Granger as the book goes on to let it more fully occupy Granger's body and mind to his advantage. It's a slender book and it's efficiently written, although I didn't find it as engaging as the first book, and I'm hoping that there's more Hooded Swan action in the next book. Next, I read Sanctuary by Dave Hutchinson, which is the third book in the Aftermath series. I think that there will be another book in the series, but I haven't seen any sign of it yet. So we are back in the same world as the first two books, 100-ish years after a comet strike has wiped out most of the world. In the south of England, very local to me, in fact, people are hanging on, trying to farm in what's still dreadful conditions, very wet and dreary, and not too different to today, in fact. Adam Hardy is an agent of GUZ, which is formerly Plymouth, site of a naval base. And Plymouth is reasonably well organised, and the forces of GUZ are beginning to expand their footprint, their regional influence. And they hear tell that in Oxford things are afoot, and Adam is sent to see what's what. He arrives in Oxford and is immediately detained. They were expecting him, or they were expecting someone. And he's surprised to find that Oxford is bustling, thriving even, and is policed by the remnants of the Thames Valley Police, descendants of the present-day constabulary for the region. The colleges of Oxford University and the city leaders run the place, but all is not as it seems. Strangers are appearing in police uniform. Long-standing coppers are disappearing, transferred to another role, never to be seen again, and senior officers are being replaced. Inspector Leonie Mello isn't sure what's going on. She just wants to be a good police and nick villains. She and Adam end up working as a team to find out what's behind the sudden spate of murders and disappearances in Oxford. Is it connected to a past gang war? Is there a serial killer? Is it corrupt cops? Or is it the sinister dealings of the mysterious Father John, a charismatic leader no one seems to have seen? I really loved being back in this world, once more enjoying the local setting just up the road from me, and I liked how The world is much bigger for these people. What would be a simple journey of 30 minutes in a car today can be days of trudging across dangerous open country in shocking weather. I enjoyed Adam's surprise at how advanced, relatively speaking, Oxford is, even compared to the organised Guz. And I enjoyed the Inspector Mello character and the gradual unravelling of the mysteries. I wasn't expecting a police procedural from this book, but there were definite overtones of that. It's a good book. I enjoy Dave Hutchinson's writing very much, and I enjoy this setting very much too. I made a start on Dragon Quest Next, which is the second of the original Pern trilogy, and I almost DNF'd it inside the first 50 pages. I think this was just due to the dramatic change of scenery after reading Sanctuary. I just struggled to get my head back into the world of Pern, and I'm irrationally annoyed by the number of apostrophes in the Dragon Riders' names. They're just everywhere. I am pushing on, but there is a little voice in my head telling me to sack it off, and while I'm at it, to clear out all of the McCaffrey books on my shelves. So I am not convinced, but she's definitely on notice. Since my initial kind of dislike of it, I am beginning to get my eye in to get back into the world, so I probably will finish it. In happier news, I have also been reading Lord Valentine's Castle, listening to it, an excellent reading of it, in fact, on Audible. It's Robert Silverberg, of course, so the world building is top notch, and more on this once I've finished it, possibly this time next week. I have about 8 hours to listen to, and so far I am enjoying it immensely. So I'm pretty happy with that as a week of reading. I think top banana, well done me. Channel stuff next. Subscribers are at 2,738 at the time of recording, up 27 on last week, a decent increment. If you're one of those 27, or if you've stumbled across my channel for the first time today, a big welcome to you. I'm John, and I focus on reading, collecting, and waffling on about science fiction books. Comment of the week this week was from Loco Foco, who provided an interesting tidbit of random information, riffing off the main character in World Out of Time, a Larry Niven book that I mentioned on a video during the week. Every day is a school day in the comments on my videos. Thank you to Loco for leaving that nugget, and thanks to all of you that take the time to leave a comment on my videos. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at what was on the channel during the week. On Sunday, there was a new feature, Bookshelf Bingo. I let the bingo balls of fate determine from which shelves I picked my TBR for May. And I'm looking forward to this month's reading. I definitely chose books that I might otherwise have passed over if I was just doing a random search. I can see from the retention stats on that video that viewers were interested in the bingo and in the shelf browsing, but then folks started to drop off after that as I began to waffle on about the books. And I enjoyed making the video, but it was rather rushed, and it's something that I'll continue to refine in the coming months. There will definitely be more bookshelf bingo. On Tuesday, there was the third instalment of audience recommendations, books about which you have waxed lyrical in the comments over the last few months. I combed through them all and picked the ones that sounded the most interesting to me. And I think there's some really great books in there, many of which I haven't read myself or not yet. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't already, and if you're stuck for something to read next. Yesterday, there was a book haul covering the month of April, or most of it. I'm trying to be more discerning, or at least less random in my book buying, not always wholly successfully, if I'm completely honest. There's some glorious shelf browsing footage from my local Oxford bookshop, which is nearly always good for an armful of science fiction books. And we'll see how successful I am in my bid to stick to one haul video a month. Thanks again to Andre, not Adrian, who sent me a wonderful book that you'll see in that video if you haven't watched it yet. As a viewer myself, this week I've watched a few things, and it's the time of the month to take a look back at April, a retrospective. And I watched Bart over at Bart's Bookspace. I was excited for him as he's fallen in love with The Dark Tower, a personal favourite of mine, and he had a fantastic looking Polish edition of Dan Simmons' Hyperion as well, which did look gorgeous. I also watched poor old insomniac Matt over at Science Fiction Reads, who is in something of a reading slump at the minute. He's still got some interesting stuff read during April and has acquired a few books during the month too. And finally, if you like a bit of military science fiction, then I have just the video for you. Whitney's new video over at Secret Source of Storycraft. It's fun and it's chock full of book recommendations, many of which were unfamiliar to me. You should check it out. It's really good. As always, I'll put the links to these videos in the description so you can check them out if you want to. On the book buying front this week, I have had a few deliveries and I've fired off a few more online orders. And in my defence, I have sold a few books recently, so I feel even more justified than I normally do in buying a few more. I got a few Charles Stross books, including plugging the final gap in a series of his that I've gradually been accumulating. Plus, I received a very unexpected gift from a viewer and fellow booktuber, and all shall be revealed in the May haul in a few weeks' time. Looking ahead to the coming week, on Sunday there will be a second episode of The Shelf Audit, my attempt to ruthlessly cleanse my shelves of duplicates, books that I'm never going to read again, that type of thing. And the first audit was quite fruitful. I got quite a few spares to pass on, but what will the second have to offer? On Tuesday, there will be a look back at the 9 books that I polished off in April. I'll be tier ranking them mercilessly, and I shall be declaring a book of the month. On Thursday, there may be that look at some solo space operas, books that aren't part of a series. I've started work on it, but I have a busy weekend ahead, so I can't promise that it'll be there by Thursday. But if not, it'll be there the following Sunday. What will I be reading this week? Well, I'll either finish the Perm book or it'll crash and burn. And I might just about finish Lord Valentine's Castle. After either finishing or DNFing Dragon Quest, I shall be taking on Joe Haldeman's Mindbridge, and I'll at least make a start on Newton's Wake by Ken MacLeod, which is one of those solo space operas. That lot should keep me busy, and I can always pick another book off the pile if I get through that lot. Talking of space operas, if you're a fan, a devotee, then you should definitely check out this playlist. There are several to watch with a payload of really fantastic book recommendations. As always, thanks for watching. Have a super weekend, and until next time, goodbye for now.